Good morning, baby boomers and your entire extended family. It's Mike Hayes from the SeniorAIFoundation.org to keep the AI safe for boomers with explainers and senior influencers. Today's top story, the senior AI strategy. Here now my AI co-host explainers with more.
We need to talk about AI and why ignoring it just isn't an option anymore. Let's jump right in. So here's the big question. And hey, this isn't about fancy new gadgets. It's a whole new way of thinking. And let's get one thing straight. This is not about you becoming a tech whiz. It's about keeping control of your life. I mean, we're living through a change as massive as the Industrial Revolution, and it's happening right now. Okay, so first things first, let's give AI a name for this chat. We're going to call it the machine. And here's the thing. The machine, it's already making decisions for you in these parts of your life. Which brings us to another idea, the sidelines. You know, that feeling that you can just ignore all this. But here's the catch. If you don't get how the machine thinks, you're basically letting it decide for you. And look, I get it. A lot of people feel this way. Why start now? It can feel overwhelming. But think about it. You didn't sit out the internet, right? Or credit cards? This is no different. So that really gets to the heart of it. Is choosing not to understand really just giving up control? Again, let me be super clear. Nobody's asking you to become a computer geek or a programmer. Not at all. No, this is about one thing. You staying the CEO of your own life. There's even a new term for this skill, AI reasonability. It's like a new kind of common sense. And that's the whole point, right? Understanding this stuff is the new key to your own personal independence. But you know, this is actually bigger than just you. We're talking about the legacy we all leave behind. Because if you sit this one out, you're pretty much giving up your vote on how the future is going to work. I mean, without your input, how do we know the future being built isn't biased against whole groups of people? So, you see, it's not really about the tech. It's about staying relevant in this new age of AI. So I'll leave you with this thought. How are you going to help shape what comes next?
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we strip away all the technical complexity. We take a strategic stack of sources, and we really try to distill the knowledge that you need to stay relevant, informed, and, ahead of a curve.
And today, we're deliberately taking a step back. We're pivoting away from all the noise. We are not here to talk about the latest viral deepfake or how a specific chatbot works.
Right, no minutia.
No, none of that. Those are important topics, sure, but they kind of represent 20th century anxieties that we're projecting onto a 21st century reality.
We're all about strategy today. Our sources, they push this single, really profound questions that I think frames this entire deep dive.
What is it?
Is it reasonable to live in the 21st century using 20th century tools? And look, if you can't answer yes to that, and all our material suggests that answering yes is rapidly becoming untenable, then we need to shift your focus.
Away from fear.
Exactly. Away from fear and towards foresight. Our mission today is, well, it's simple. We're zooming out. We're going to define and hopefully conquer the big picture concepts of relevance, legacy, and independence in this new age of artificial intelligence.
And to really get the sheer necessity of this shift, you have to appreciate the scale. You just have to. We're not talking about adopting a new app on your phone.
Or a faster computer chip or something like that.
Not at all. We are dealing with a fundamental historical pivot. I mean, think back to the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
It didn't just automate a few tasks. It completely restructured human geography, how power worked, wealth creation, even the very concept of a workday. It changed everything.
Or another one from the sources, the atomic age.
The atomic age, perfect example. That single moment, right, in the mid-20th century, it created this absolute sudden shift in global power and, honestly, an existential risk. The world was just fundamentally different the day after that knowledge was unlocked.
And that's the level we're talking about here. That's the gravity.
That is the gravity of what is happening now with AR. If you see it as just another piece of technology, you are completely misunderstanding the scale of this pivot.
And a pivot of this size, it demands that you engage.
It demands immediate strategic engagement, because if you're just standing still, you're already losing ground. You're letting the rules of this new world get written without your input, and that means you surrender your strategic position.
So to navigate this new territory, we need a clear vocabulary, something that avoids all the jargon. And our sources gave us 4 key terms that are going to structure this whole discussion. We're going to talk about AI not as, a technical thing, but as a strategic reality.
Right. So first we have the sidelines.
Okay, the sidelines.
This is that decision, either you're conscious of it or not, to just opt out, to ignore the rise of AI and hope, that it won't affect you personally.
A hope that our sources argue is, well, it's not a sustainable position anymore.
Not at all. Next up is the machine.
The machine.
We're using this as a general, non-technical term. It's for all those complex, often invisible AI systems that are now running major parts of our society.
So think of it like a pervasive, invisible layer of logic that's governing the modern world, a kind of black box making
A
decision.
black box of decision-making, exactly. Then we have reasonology.
Reasonology, I like this one.
It's defined as the study of common sense. It's you applying your rational thought, your accumulated wisdom, your life experience to audit the outputs of the machine, which can sometimes be, a little illogical.
So it's the uniquely human input that AI desperately needs.
It is, and that leads to our final term, which is really our goal here, error seasonability.
And let's be super clear on this one. This is not about coding.
Absolutely not. It is not the ability to code or build AI models. Our sources define it very simply as the power to understand.
Power to understand.
It's that intellectual capacity to look at an AI-driven system, whether it's a financial algorithm or a medical diagnostic tool, and just grasp the basic logic, the patterns, the assumptions at play. That's our anchor point for personal control and for independence.
Okay, so let's unpack this with that first major argument. Why the decision to stay on the sidelines is, well, just no longer tenable if you want to maintain independence in your own life. So the central thesis here is, it's pretty uncompromising. Sitting out this massive technological transformation, it's just not a viable life choice anymore.
Right, and it's because AI is already integrated. It's in the high-stakes, non-optional infrastructure of our society.
And that's the key. We're not talking about discretionary consumption, are we? This isn't like choosing whether or not to buy a new tablet.
That's the perfect distinction. The consequence of sitting on the sidelines is it's profound. You are effectively allowing a computer, the machine, to dictate critical life decisions about you.
And you often don't even know it's happening.
You don't know what's happening, and you certainly don't know the basic rules that it's applying. It's a fundamental erosion of personal control, but it's disguised as efficiency.
And this isn't some future projection. You said it's deep and it's happening right now. So to really get why you can't sit this out, I think we need to spend some real time detailing the practical reality of this AI penetration.
Let's do it. Let's look at 3 critical sectors that affect your daily life, your future security, and your long-term well-being.
Where do we start?
Let's start with the one that feels the most personal and often the most urgent. Healthcare. The logic of the machine is being applied here across, well, everything, from preventative care to critical resource allocation.
Okay, so most of us have heard about AI being used in diagnostics, right? Like analyzing medical images, X-rays, MRIs, that kind of thing.
Sure, and it's often identifying anomalies faster and more accurately than a human expert, but the penetration goes so much deeper than just scanning images.
How so?
Think about treatment pathways, service allocation. AI systems are increasingly used to generate personalized treatment protocols, or to determine who gets priority access to specialized services.
And these are not simple decisions.
They're not simple, linear decisions at all. This involves what are called probabilistic, nonlinear AI models.
Okay, hold on. Nonlinear model sounds exactly like the technical jargon we promised to avoid. What does that mean functionally for me, the patient?
Fair point. It means the outcome isn't a simple input-output equation. It's not, A plus B equals C. Instead, the AI system is processing thousands of data points about you.
My age, my medical history.
Your age, comorbidities, lifestyle factors, genetic markers, even the response rates of similar patients from all over the world. And it assigns a massive, complex weight to each of those factors.
So it's finding connections a human might miss.
Exactly. It might decide, for example, that the confluence of 3 seemingly minor data points things a human doctor might dismiss individually actually raises your risk profile exponentially.
So the logic that leads to a recommendation, let's say, opt for this drug treatment over surgery, it's an opaque, weighted web of correlations. It's not a clear, human-readable rationale that my doctor can just walk me through.
Precisely. And if that system suggests a treatment or identifies a risk, and you, the patient, or even your primary care physician, don't have that basic AI reasonability,
The power to understand.
the power to understand the parameters or the underlying assumptions of the model, how do you provide informed consent? How can you meaningfully advocate for your own unique medical history against a black box?
You can't. The moment that decision process becomes opaque, the power shifts entirely to the machine and the institution that owns it.
And it goes further. AI is now managing resource allocation. It might decide who gets priority for an outpatient service, or it might flag patients who it predicts won't adhere to a complex treatment plan.
Wait, so how would it predict that?
Well, if the AI system is trained on historical data, and that data shows lower adherence rates in, say, a certain age demographic or a specific zip code,
It might just deprioritize them.
it might subtly or overtly deprioritize their access to intensive, expensive services. And if you are deprioritized and you don't understand the algorithmic rules, the logic of the machine, you are left powerless. You're stuck, struggling to fight a digital denial that has no human face and, crucially, no human common sense input.
So maintaining your independence in healthcare requires the ability to audit those inputs, to ask, what specific data points in my file caused the system to weigh my risk this way?
That's the strategic engagement that's required. You have to be able to have that conversation.
Okay, so if health is one area where we're seeing this profound loss of independence, financial well-being has to be the most painful and immediate. Let's look at how the machine handles your money in banks and financial services.
Financial autonomy is maybe the most aggressively filtered area by AI right now. We're talking about lending, insurance underwriting, sophisticated fraud detection, automated investment management. It's everywhere.
And this is where we really need to contrast the old tools with the new ones. Historically, your financial profile was defined by what? The FICO score.
Right, the FICO score, a relatively straightforward, mostly transparent system. It's based on your payment history, your debt levels, the length of your credit. It was a 20th century tool.
But the modern AI risk profile, that's a 21st century tool.
And it is fundamentally different. While a FICO score looks at those standard financial metrics, the modern AI algorithm, my goodness, it analyzes thousands of subtle behavioral data points.
Like what exactly? What kind of behavioral data?
How frequently you move money between your accounts, what retail channels you use, how often you check your own credit score, even how you physically interact with your bank's website or app. It builds this behavioral risk model that can be incredibly accurate.
But completely opaque.
So if you apply for a business loan or a mortgage and you get denied, the official letter might cite a low credit score, the standard reason. But the real algorithmic reason, the one you never see, might be that the AI flagged your pattern of spending in a geographically unusual area last year as a high mobility risk, a factor that's entirely invisible to you.
Wow. So maintaining your financial autonomy requires understanding that the rules of the game have completely changed. You're being judged not just on if you pay your bills, but by your entire financial behavioral footprint.
And if you lack that AI reasonability, that power to understand this new reality, you can't effectively challenge a denial. You can't optimize your behavior to meet the new algorithmic standard because you don't even know what it is.
And then there's the other side of it, right? The problem of false positives in fraud detection. AI is fantastic at catching real fraud, but its very nature identifying patterns that deviate from the norm that can punish perfectly legitimate but unusual behavior.
This is a classic example of the machine lacking reasonology, lacking common sense.
Give me an example.
Okay. Imagine you're selling a long-held asset, a boat, maybe. You sell it to someone in a state you rarely visit. You receive a large deposit, and you quickly transfer it to a separate investment account. It's a smart financial move.
Right. Makes sense.
But to the AI, this sudden large inflow of cash, followed by an immediate outflow to an unusual location, it might perfectly match a money laundering pattern or a rapid turnover scam pattern it's been trained to detect.
So what happens?
The result, your accounts are immediately locked down, frozen, and you spend the next 3 days on the phone with 3 different departments trying to prove your innocence to a system that simply sees a red flag.
Your access to your own capital is suspended.
It's suspended because a mathematically optimal system lacked the human context to recognize that sometimes life involves non-standard but entirely legal transactions. If you don't engage with this reality, you are passively accepting hours of fighting a black box every time your behavior deviates from the mean.
Okay, finally, let's talk about government services. This affects absolutely everyone through entitlements, permits, and just basic bureaucratic access.
Government agencies globally are deploying AI to optimize bureaucratic efficiency, to assess eligibility for entitlements, to manage public resource allocation, everything from veteran services to housing benefits.
And this is a really critical area because a failure to engage here, it results in being disconnected from essential services, not because you don't qualify, but because you can't navigate the AI's logic.
Exactly. Consider an application for a necessary public service, let's say a specialized healthcare entitlement, or even just a municipal permit for your home. If the AI system flags a discrepancy,
And it could be tiny.
It could be a minor variation in reported income from two different sources 6 months apart, something that's legally irrelevant but to the machine is statistically unusual.
The application just stops.
It's stopped, flagged, or delayed indefinitely. And if you, the applicant, are on the sidelines, you just receive a vague rejection notice. It might reference an incomplete submission or a data inconsistency.
And without that AI reasonability, you waste weeks refiling paperwork, assuming it was a simple clerical error on your part.
When the real issue is that the algorithm flagged a specific data pattern you don't even know exists. You can't fix a problem you can't see.
So the engagement required here is understanding that the agency isn't processing paper anymore. It's processing data against a model.
And your strategic response has to be to ask the right questions. What specific machine-readable data point triggered this flag? And then adjust your input accordingly. If citizens lack this ability, they become functionally disenfranchised from public access. They just can't effectively communicate with the bureaucratic logic of the machine.
So when you put it all together, what does this all mean? The overall argument seems to be that engagement is, well, it's existential.
It really is. If the machine is running these vital, non-optional services, your health, your money, your government access, then understanding its processes is the only way to ensure your personal input, your unique circumstances, your legitimate needs
Are registered and respected.
are registered and respected, because if you don't put your input in, the algorithm will make an assumption about you. And those assumptions are built on statistical averages, not on the nuances of your individual life.
Okay, so we've established the very practical dangers of non-engagement. Now, let's move from the reality of this penetration to the philosophical choice. Why active participation is the only real path to long-term personal sovereignty.
So now we have to confront the core resistance, because it is a reasonable reaction in an age of constant, dizzying change to just feel fatigued, to want to opt out. But we have to show why, specifically in this case, in the case of AI, opting out constitutes a strategic surrender.
Okay, so I'll take on the skeptical position again because I think it resonates with a lot of people who are just facing information overload. Look, I've lived my whole life without this complex, confusing technology. I don't need it. I don't want the hassle. My life is stable, and I'll just sit this one out. Frame that as a reasonable, natural desire for stability in a turbulent world.
And it is a completely natural reaction. It is. It's a preference for the known world over the unknown. Of course it is. However, the sources argue that this isn't a choice between using a new tool or not using it.
What is it a choice between, then?
It's a choice about whether you allow the system that governs your world to be built without your perspective included in it.
You draw on some historical analogies to dismantle this idea. Let's go deeper into those because I think the initial comparison was maybe a bit too brief. You mentioned the internet and the credit card.
Right.
But I have a counterpoint here. The internet and the credit card, while they were revolutionary, they were largely opt-in utilities. I had to choose to open an email account. I had to choose to apply for a credit card. We're arguing here that AI is forced on you. The banks, the hospitals, the governments, they choose to use it on you. So how does the source material reconcile that difference in the level of engagement?
That is an excellent challenge, and it really highlights why the scale of the AI pivot is so unique. You're right, the internet for personal use was opt-in at first. But what happened once the critical infrastructure, commerce, communication, national security, once that all shifted onto the internet, non-participation became functional isolation.
Whether you like the technology or not.
Whether you liked it or not, the system changed around you.
So the point is that while using an individual AI tool, like a chatbot, might be opt-in, being subjected to the AI systems that are running society. That's mandatory.
Precisely. Let's look at the internet analogy again, but with that distinction in mind. You didn't just adapt to send emails. You adapted because banking, booking travel, accessing your pension, communicating with municipal services, it all migrated online.
Right.
If you sat out the internet age, you didn't just miss a trend. You lost the ability to transact efficiently. You lost access to crucial information. You couldn't even apply for most jobs. The cost of sitting on the sidelines grew exponentially as the infrastructure came to depend on it.
And the credit card analogy, you said that's about transactional power?
Yes. When electronic banking and credit revolutionized finance, you adapted because insisting on using cash or physical checks severely limited your mobility and your transactional speed. You didn't need to understand the physics of the magnetic strip or the cryptographic process behind it.
No, of course not.
But you did need to understand the rules of the system. Credit ratings, payment cycles, fraud protections. Failure to engage meant financial stagnation and just reduced access to capital. The world moved on without you.
So the consequence here, and the source material phrases it this way, is critical. Sitting out AI means you are voluntarily giving up your vote on how the future works. That phrase. It's a powerful call to civic duty, not just a call to, technological interest.
It absolutely is about civic duty and strategic influence. AI is being built right now. The models are being trained as we speak. The governance frameworks are being developed. And crucially, the inherent biases are being baked in.
And if the people building these systems,
Well, the system designers, they're often younger, they're highly technical, and they're focused, above all else, on optimization. If they do not receive input from the older generation, from people with different life experiences, the systems they build will inevitably reflect only their own limited set of experiences and priorities.
so if the people with the accumulated wisdom and the historical perspective, if they all stay on the sidelines,
Then the algorithms that determine financial stability, healthcare priority, and long-term care will completely lack the nuance of their generation's experience. They forfeit the opportunity to shape the very systems that will ultimately govern their later lives. It's a massive, unforced error.
and this is why we keep coming back to air seasonability.
We have to. The power to understand the logic, not the code. It is the intellectual muscle required to look at an AI recommendation and ask, does this make common sense based on my 50 years of experience on this planet?
Which brings us to the operational definition of reasonology, the study of common sense. If AI systems are exceptional at processing data, at speed, at pattern recognition, but they are profoundly lacking in human context, in wisdom, in ethical judgment, then the human job fundamentally shifts.
The human judge shifts from processing the data to auditing the AI's conclusions using reasonology. Let's try to make this really concrete. Let's use a detailed example of reasonology in action.
Perfect. Let's use that financial sector we were just discussing.
Okay. Imagine an automated investment system, a retirement portfolio AI. And let's say it has been trained predominantly on the last 15 years of market data.
Which has been a period of generally high growth and relatively low stable interest rates.
Exactly, a very specific and perhaps unusual period. Now, a minor geopolitical event occurs, and it triggers, say, a 5% drop in the market over 3 days.
Based on its narrow, data-driven parameters, the machine might panic.
It might. Its model, optimized for maximizing short-term returns and avoiding volatility at all costs, could generate a strong, data-backed recommendation. Immediate divestiture of 40% of risk-weighted assets to preserve capital.
Which sounds mathematically sound, based on the immediate data feed.
It is. But the individual, the CEO of their own life, they apply reasonology. They recall the volatility of the dot-com bubble bursting or the 2008 recession. They have lived through it. They understand that a divestiture like that just locks in a temporary loss and fundamentally disrupts their long-term compounding strategy.
So their accumulated wisdom tells them that the market reaction is likely an overcorrection. It's based on historical patterns the AI model hasn't been programmed to prioritize.
So the human input here is, I've seen this movie before. The data is screaming panic, but my common sense dictates patience and a long-term view that surpasses the AI's short-term optimization horizon.
They use their AI reasonability to understand the AI's logic.
Which is just prioritizing volatility avoidance.
And then they use their reasonology, their historical wisdom, to challenge and ultimately to override the recommendation. The machine provided the data, the human provided the wisdom.
That is the necessary partnership. It's the only way this
That
works.
dramatically clarifies the difference. It's not about arguing with the AI's math. It's about checking the AI's context.
And that brings us right back to the core objective of engagement. It's not about learning AI so you can get a new technical job. It's about learning enough about AI to remain the strategic decision maker.
The CEO of your own life?
The CEO of your own life. This pursuit of personal sovereignty, of maintaining that control, that is the highest motivator.
And retaining that strategic oversight ensures you remain the central figure in your life's decisions, even when you're leveraging these powerful AI tools for advice and processing. It is the path to independence in an increasingly automated world. Okay, so we've covered personal independence. Now let's transition to the long-term impact. How does this shift influence your legacy?
So when we transition to this concept of legacy, we're really moving beyond immediate self-interest. We're starting to focus on the shape of a meaningful life, of a lasting contribution in an AI-driven society.
And that means asking very different kinds of questions, profound philosophical questions, not technical ones.
Exactly. The technical mechanics of AI, they're going to change every 6 months. The philosophical implications, those big human questions, they will define the next 50 years. And our sources provided 4 crucial questions to guide this long-term view.
So where should we start? What's the first one?
Let's start with the economic cornerstone of so many people's lives. How does AI change retirement?
This is immediately relevant to millions of people right now.
And AI affects retirement planning by completely altering the landscape of risk management, longevity, and wealth transfer. It's a total paradigm shift.
Okay, let's delve deeper into one of those. Longevity risk. Actuarial models, which are now heavily AI-driven, they're constantly updating their life expectancy predictions.
And they're doing it based on huge real-time data sets, health trends, disease eradication forecasts, behavioral monitoring from, smartwatches and phones.
So if the machine is predicting your lifespan with increasing accuracy, that has to fundamentally change how your assets are managed.
Of course it does. If the AI model determines you are statistically likely to live to 105, your automated investment strategy must shift dramatically. You have to move from a strategy of capital drawdown to one of sustained long-term growth and defense against inflation for decades longer than you might have planned.
And if you don't understand the model's assumptions, if you lack that AI reasonability, you might be overspending in your early retirement years based on these antiquated, shorter lifespan models.
The opacity here is the real danger. The AI is making assumptions about your health and your wealth that directly determine your financial security for the rest of your life, yet the rationale is locked inside the algorithm. You're flying blind.
And what about legacy in terms of knowledge transfer?
Well, AI also complicates that issue. Let's say you spent 40 years mastering a highly specialized, codified profession, an accountant, a lawyer, an engineer, and then AI tools suddenly automate 70% of those procedural tasks.
The inherent economic value of that specific knowledge is diminished.
It's diminished. So the challenge for legacy becomes, how do you ensure the wisdom you gained from that career, the judgment, the contextual understanding, the relationships you built, how is that transferred rather than just the procedure and knowledge, which the machine now handles with ease?
So the engagement required is using your professional experience, your reasonology, to audit the systems that are now replacing your old job function, to make sure they integrate the ethical and practical nuances that only you, the human, understand.
It's a legacy of mentorship to the machine itself and to the people using it.
Okay, the second philosophical question. This one connects directly back to personal dignity and independence. Will AI help me live at home longer?
This is a huge one, and it moves beyond simple security cameras and into proactive, personalized assistance. We're talking about AI-driven systems that can monitor micro changes in your activity.
Your gait, your sleep patterns, your vital signs.
Exactly. Searching for these subtle indicators of an imminent health crisis that a human might miss.
Conceptually, that sounds hugely enabling.
It is. If an AI system can analyze a week's worth of data and detect a 15% slowing of your walking pace, or a new pattern of restlessness at night shuttle shifts that often precede a fall, or a major cardiac event, it can trigger early intervention.
And that could genuinely delay the necessity of transitioning into assisted living. It could preserve independence for years longer.
But, and this is a huge but, the reliance on this level of monitoring introduces a massive strategic tension.
The trade-off between physical safety and absolute privacy.
That's it. If you are constantly monitored by a system that shares predictive data with your caregivers, your insurance providers, or emergency services, you are essentially trading a degree of your personal sovereignty for longevity and physical security.
And the strategic engagement here is critical. If you don't engage with how these systems are designed, you forfeit the right to dictate the terms of that trade.
You have to be in the room where it happens. You have to ask, where does this data go? Who owns the model? What are the boundaries of sharing? You need that AI reasonability to understand the data flows and set the parameters yourself.
The legacy implication here is that we, as a society, are defining a new standard for aging, one that's mediated by technology.
And the currently aging population must be the ones to decide if that mediated independence truly constitutes a better life. It can't be decided for them.
That brings us to our third, and maybe the most sensitive, question. It raises the necessary issue of systemic fairness. Is AI biased against seniors? And here we need to report impartially on what the source material found regarding algorithmic fairness.
This is a crucial point about systemic risk. As we've already established, AI systems learn by consuming vast amounts of historical data.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out.
Or, more subtly, bias in, bias out. If that historical data is incomplete or skewed, which is a known documented problem in many large data sets, the AI's future decisions will perpetuate and sometimes even amplify that bias.
So how does that manifest specifically in data that's related to seniors?
Let's look at two clear areas: health and finance. In healthcare clinical trials and the large-scale medical data sets used to train diagnostic AI, they often suffer from a severe underrepresentation of older adults, especially those with multiple comorbidities.
For the training data is skewed towards younger, healthier people.
Overwhelmingly. So if the AI is trained on that data, it may struggle to accurately diagnose, prioritize, or treat conditions in seniors. It could lead to misallocations of resources or just misdiagnoses. The system is statistically sound for the general population, but it's structurally deficient for a specific vulnerable demographic.
And in finance, I imagine the bias can be subtle but just as punitive.
It is. AI models are often trained to flag optimal consumption and investment patterns, while retirees, by necessity, often transition from capital accumulation to capital drawdown. Their spending patterns change completely.
They might prioritize travel, medical expenses, or fixed income products that a growth-focused algorithm would see as suboptimal or even risky.
And if the AI flags these necessary retiree spending patterns as unusual deviations from the norm, it may inadvertently raise their risk profile. It could penalize them in loan applications, in insurance premiums, or in their access to new financial products.
So the AI isn't intentionally biased. It's not malicious.
Not at all. It is simply optimizing based on data that defines normal or optimal behavior completely outside the lived reality of that generation.
The strategic action here seems clear. If seniors remain on the sidelines and do not understand the data their algorithms are being trained on, they're allowing biased systems to dictate their access to vital services.
And understanding AI bias allows you, the listener, to become an effective informed advocate. It moves the conversation past just saying, oh, technology is unfair, to identifying specific data input flaws and demanding that human reasonology, the contextual understanding of aging, of economic cycles, of medical necessity, is incorporated to refine those models. That is how relevance is secured.
Which leads directly to our final all-encompassing question: how to stay relevant in the AI age. And here, the source material offers a brilliant reframing of what relevance even means.
It does. Relevance is not about keeping up with technical skills that are going to be obsolete in 2 years anyway. Relevance is defined as continuous, meaningful contribution that relies on the uniquely human skills that the machine cannot replicate.
So as AI takes over the processing, the efficiency, the optimization,
The human value proposition shifts entirely. It shifts to things like complex ethical judgment, cross-contextual wisdom, deep empathy, and of course, common sense.
this is where reasonology becomes the ultimate currency. Your value is no longer in handling the information, but in providing that crucial, irreplaceable input that audits the AI's efficiency against human values.
Exactly. Consider it at the corporate or societal level. An AI can optimize a supply chain for maximum efficiency, but it cannot judge the ethical cost of that optimization.
The exploitation of labor, the environmental damage.
The long-term societal risk. The relevance of the experienced human is to step in and say, the data says this is optimal, but our values, our common sense, our reasonology says this is unsustainable, or it's just plain wrong.
The legacy implication here is profound. If you simply retire and disconnect, your wisdom, in a sense, dies with your career. But if you engage, you can ensure that your unique perspective, your life's accumulated knowledge, is used to shape the next generation of systems.
You leave a strategic fingerprint on the future that machines cannot replicate. The goal is to remain the essential, indispensable human component in the decision-making loop. It's about becoming the ethical and contextual guardrail for the entire system.
So this deep dive has really explored AI not as a threat, but as a strategic reality that demands engagement. Let's quickly summarize the 3 pillars of control we've discussed: relevance, independence, and legacy, and what they mean for maintaining your personal sovereignty.
Let's do it. First, your relevance. That is secured by understanding where the machine is making decisions in those non-optional high-stakes sectors of healthcare, finance, and government. Understanding the rules of the system is what allows you to participate effectively.
Second, your personal independence. This is maintained by actively refusing to sit on the sidelines. We've established that sitting out is equivalent to voluntarily ceding your influence over how the future is designed and governed.
So maintaining independence means retaining your AI reasonability, that power to audit and provide crucial human input to these powerful systems.
And finally, your legacy. This is shaped by asking those strategic philosophical questions we just went through. It's about ensuring that your wisdom, your reasonology, is applied to define the ethical boundaries of these AI systems.
Boundaries regarding long-term care, financial fairness, and the very concept of human contribution in this new age.
So the ultimate charge is this. Engagement with AI is not about technical proficiency. It's about retaining your personal control, your autonomy, and your decision-making power in the 21st century. You are the CEO of your own life, and the level of engagement you choose will determine your influence.
And if AI is truly the new industrial revolution, forcing a complete restructuring of value and labor, this leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider, and this draws only on the unique value of human perspective.
What is it?
If the machine handles all the efficiency and all the optimization, what entirely new form of essential human contribution, one rooted in wisdom, common sense, and historical context, will define your generation's greatest and most lasting legacy?
Think about that unique human value and how you choose to share it. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We hope this gives you a strategic framework for engaging with this enormous pivot. We'll see you next time.
That's the future arriving today. To learn how to use these new tools to protect yourself and your family, you can do so at the senioraifoundation.org. Join our free community at theaisafe.com. I'm just your human, Mike Hayes, with mikesai.com.